Welcome, everybody. This is Activities Across Grade Levels. We're excited to be sharing ideas with you again this week. This week, we're going to focus on voice. So we'll be talking about some recording tools and all kinds of great learning that happens with it. In a sense, it's less about the tool and more about how creative we're getting about what it is that we're doing with our students, particularly as we work with them from a distance, if that is what you are dealing with as well. Let's pass out a few thank yous before we get started. First, Susan's district for letting her be part of this, Fowler Unified in Central California. All right, huge props to the Fowler team. And also the team up in Idaho, in Jerome School District, School District 261 up in Idaho. Great crowd, and a big shout out to the teachers and students at Jerome High School and Fall City Academy and Summit Academy, Summit Elementary for all of the good work you guys are doing with kiddos there. We need to thank Richard Byrne of Free Tech for Teachers, who shares word of what we're doing, and he and I are actually doing a webinar on Friday called Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff. We had so much fun doing that last Friday for the first episode, and feel free to check in our webinars page for info on that. I'll get that link in the chat very, very soon as well. So we are happy to meet you, and just to start with, Susan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Susan Stewart. I'm an instructional technology teacher on special assignment. I like to say I'm a tech coach, and I support 125 fabulous teachers in Central California in Fowler Unified School District. We are a K-12 district. My background is in teaching kindergarten and second grade for many years, and I'm really excited to be here with y'all today.
Very cool. All right, so I put Susan's Twitter handle in the chat. Make sure to follow that and learn about that. I've also put the webinar page so that you can get set up for Friday's webinar, and that'll be the same page where you can get set up for me and Susan for next week as well, when we talk about reading and online strategies and techniques and tools and that kind of stuff. This is me and my wife. I'm on the left, and this was back when we went to concerts. Wistfully, I think of such things. But as we get started, there's my Twitter account as well. I want you to know that we're coming to you with a lot of different experiences in our background. So Susan is widely known as someone who can talk extensively about possibilities for younger students, K2, CAN 2, and you'll hear a little bit more about that as we go along. I am a former high school teacher, a former principal, a former online school principal, and for the last 15 years, I've been running Next Vista for Learning. Next Vista is an online library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content, my own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. Thank you very much. I also run the Krause Center for Innovation Merit program, and I'm excited about Merit 20 coming up, which will be at least initially online and perhaps back face-to-face by July. Let's all hope. So if you are looking for cool videos, the kind of stuff that kids put together and teachers share and that kind of thing, you can find a lot on our website. There is the link to that. And we have videos about academic topics and light bulbs, communities, and in global views, and service to others in our Seeing Service collection. We also have videos about careers. We have videos about English language for English language learners. We're trying to build the largest collection of free English language videos, very short videos, focused on vocabulary topics and individual words, where there's like one video about the word, one video that's the subtitled version, so you can wean yourself off of that to the other one. All kinds of good stuff there. If you're interested, just stay in touch with me. What we're doing in these webinars is trying to get you on top of the possibilities that are there as we keep learning going for our kids. So there are loads of kids out there who at first were like, wow, this is like a spring break early. And now they're like, oh my God, this is school now. And what we need to do is to figure out how to inspire them. Just like, how we try to figure out, what it is that they need, when they're right there in front of us in the classroom. We have to figure out what is it that'll allow them to see possibilities for themselves they haven't seen before using the tools that are available online. There's a lot out there. We just have to be really creative about what we use, and we have to be good about exploring these possibilities professionally with each other and seeing what it is that'll allow us to get to that next kid. So how this is going to work, there are two of us. There are differences, right, in our backgrounds. We'll have different ideas. We're going to talk about different grade levels as well. And we think that those grade level differences are important. In the healthiest school district, you'll find an AP physics teacher and a kindergarten teacher sitting down and coming up with all kinds of ideas together, because we can. When we really listen to each other about the kinds of things we do in the classroom, we start getting ideas that, like I was saying before, will allow you to get to that next kid. So today it's all about voice, and we're going to start by talking about a particular tool. This tool is called SpeakPipe Voice Recorder. I'm going to put this link in the chat, but I'm going to demonstrate it on the screen as well. So you might want to hold off clicking there for the moment. This is what this site looks like. It's beautifully simple, right? There's just that one button, start recording. I love the simplicity of one button. You're like, no, there's a sign in. You don't have to sign in. You don't need an account to use this. You can do this with the younger kids, no problem. The lack of need for accounts is a beautiful thing. And it works simply. You click start record, you start saying, no, I have all these important things to say and recorded for posterity. Click stop, and then you can play it. You get it. And then save on server is what you do to keep it. You don't, it asks for your name, but that's optional. If you click save, what it will do is it'll start processing the recording you just did and spit back a link, right? So there is this link right here that would be the kind of thing that your kid might, having recorded him or herself, grab the link and send to you. If you click on that link, you'll get this. And what this is that same thing. And there's also a download button with it, so you can get an MP3 of it. Now that's important because these only remain on the servers for 3 months. They make this tool available for free. They don't ask you to do anything for it, you know, and they add and at the end of 3 months, we delete it, and that's fine. But if you download it as an MP3, it's fine. So you know you get 5 minutes total to do your recording. And just so you know, 5 minutes is a long time. Do not be recording like 5-minute long audio pieces for your students. That's in the Just Saying department. So that's the tool we're going to use as we talk about this. There's any number of tools that will do this. We'll actually touch on a few more towards the end. But the key thing is, what can you get a kid to do with voice? So let's start with the young learners. And Susan, I'll pass it over to you for talking about them.
Awesome. Yes. So we know that with our young learners especially, their literacy takes a different format. Sometimes reading isn't something they've yet developed, but they sure can talk. So having ways to capture that voice, I love how we can have them show their literacy through their voice. As we're developing literacy, we can talk about developing fluency and prosody. So students record themselves reading letters or words, short passages, and we can have them listen to themselves reading. We'll show an example in a moment about students using this for language development. And let's go ahead and play this example of a student writing here.
Oops.
Right.
There we go.
The best thing I did this summer was going to the beach, and my sister said
So it's really great that the student is able to read what they wrote. It helps them hear themselves, and it also, you know, does the story make sense? Have I told a good, you know, thorough story here? So it's a good way for them just to repeat what they have written there. A couple other examples we'll look at, but one I want to point out on this screen is my own daughter. She has a speech IEP, and sometimes some of her activities require her to say the same sound over and over again. And by using a tool like SpeakPipe to record herself making those sounds, she's able to listen back and see if she's correctly making those sounds. So it's a great way for her to work on those speech and articulation exercises. And then some other examples we have. This example, I'll go ahead and let you play it, Rushton. So when I played that back to the student, I asked her, do we read like this? You know, and I'm super excited here because this is a kindergartner reading, and then her being able to reflect on her own reading. And I said, you know, when I hear a reader, I don't always hear them reading. And so that just moment where the student says, oh, can I do it again? And just reflecting upon their success and then building their own fluency beyond that. You know all the words. Now can we read it, you know, more smoothly with the words more connected? Can we add some tone and expression? So really great way to use a simple tool to capture that reading. Going a little further, and this is one we mentioned last week, but we can also have them capture their voice in developing language. Our English learners could benefit from recording and hearing themselves and their peers. So we use a tool like Seesaw, I'll talk about it more a little bit later, to capture their voice. Going into upper elementary, some older students, maybe your 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, some examples might look like this, where we have them, again, going further with that expression and tone. When they have a passage of text, and maybe it's text with dialogue, when they come to those quotation marks in the dialogue, can they change their voice just a little bit to reflect the fact that the text is telling me that someone's talking? Can they change their voice depending on what punctuation is in the sentence? Do they change their voice based on the different characters that they're reading in the passage? So just really great ways for them to capture their voice. And then reciting poetry.
I peeled a banana and needed to sneeze. I picked up a peach and was bitten by fleas. I gnawed on it.
So in that, we know that poetry has its own cadence and there's its own style when it comes to reading poetry. So being able to record that and have them listen to themselves, are they giving good tone and cadence in their poetry reading? A few other examples I have listed there: readers theater, book commercials, and interviewing. They could ask and answer questions of someone, and they can record it using either SpeakPipe or any other tool, just being able to record questions through their voice.
So let's take it up to middle school and the kinds of things that your tweens may be doing. And let's also note that all of the strategies that Susan talked about with the younger students might be perfectly good for your middle schoolers as well. You might be upping the content in some fashion, but all good. So, for example, let's say we're working on news. So you think about radio news. What does a news report sound like? And to talk about that as a way of thinking about the kind of proto-journalism kind of things for kids, and they can begin to say, all right, well, if I am reporting on chlorophyll, what would that look like? Well, we have a report from the field today, haha, field. Whatever it might be, to be able to get kids in that space of like being able to say, this is the topic. And what you're going to hear me say again and again in these activities is, how can you get them to connect something, right? So to whatever extent they can begin to say, here is what we're talking about, and it connects to this other thing in this interesting way. That creative element allows them to go from this narrow band of trying to remember something via a simple, short, like rote memorization, to associating it with other things that they've done. And so if you're having them do a news report, maybe they're connecting to some other piece in some interesting way. You can also have them record explanations. So if there's a set of vocabulary, and pretty much if you teach, you're teaching vocabulary, and a term that a kid can take and say, all right, let's see, how do we get people to recognize the term that I'm talking about? Well, one way to do it would be to create an audio piece that is just the definition and they have to identify it. But that too is in that rote space. If instead the kid has the chance to really be able to apply it in some fashion and say that this particular term relates to these things, right? And so you're saying, okay, well, if such and such and such happens, I'm standing outside and a car passes and the music that I was hearing playing from the car changed in sound. Oh, okay, so that's a different idea. So that's a particular thing where we're talking about a particular physics concept or science concept or whatever it may be, the Doppler effect, where kids are now beginning to go, that's what we're talking about. And they need those moments of association to do really well with it. Now, you can also have them do reflection. So think back to before shelter in place kicked into gear, and what is it that you learned, last semester or earlier this semester that really stood out for you? And so not just explaining that, but explaining how you would show that you acted on your learning. This is the kind of moment where we can help kids know that we're not just expecting them to spit stuff back on a test. We're expecting them to be able to explain in interesting, creative ways how they take what they're learning to another level with their lives. Let's move up to high school. So with high school, all of the things from middle school could be applied as well. But let's add a few. How about they do an interview? You're like, wow, well, who are they going to find to interview? They're going to interview themselves. What? They're going to do it with two voices. They need to learn they have multiple voices. You hear kids say things, all people say things like, I don't like the way I sound when I'm recorded. Well, fine. change your voice, right? And because you've got lots of voices, you've got this voice, you've got that voice, you've got lots of voices. And so by doing an interview, you can say, okay, well, we're very happy today to have, and then, you know, the other person, and that's not something that that is an ability limited to just a few kids. Every kid can do it if they try. And once they try, that's a good path towards building a certain kind of academic confidence, giving them a chance to do some pretty cool things. Now, there are plenty of challenging topics. You know, when you get to them, you're like, oh, kids always have trouble with this one. Good. Identifying that, get a kid to say, here's how I describe it. And have several of the kids put things together. That can be material that they discuss together, where they begin to look at it and say, well, does this apply in this way? And they can really up their game in terms of academic discussion by working with each other to come up with new ways of explaining the things that are challenging. And in doing it, you're going to have kids say, wait, that's how that works? They needed to overcome a certain gap that they had with something they were doing. And then finally, like, let's talk about the idea of taking something from your class and explaining in a 1-minute piece how it relates to something they learned in another class. And doing so not just like, here's the connection, but to ask them to do it in 2 ways. One, an obvious connection. Well, you know, both of these things occurred at, you know, like the science idea was discovered about the same time that this was happening. All right, fine. A connection to history that way, or literature, or whatever it might be. But have them do an obvious one, it's the same time, with something that's much more interesting and challenging, which is that difficult, maybe subtle connection of, it's interesting because the people who were involved in this were worried about these kinds of things, and these kinds of things were happening over here. That's when their learning really takes a step in a really, really cool direction. So as promised, there are a number of cool tools that can help you as you're thinking about using voice in really interesting ways. Susan, get us started on some of these guys.
So, okay, I've got a few here. One is Vocaroo. One of my teachers in my district often uses Vocaroo, much like we demonstrated SpeakPipe. It's a quick way to capture, no accounts, no logins, no passwords, capture some audio, instantly download it as an MP3, and then the student's free to use that in other creative tools. OblaCloud is another one. It's a Chrome MP3 recorder app. Like, it's optimized for working on Chromebooks. So sometimes when you're using Chromebooks, people say, oh, Chromebooks aren't creative tools. I can't do anything creative with a Chromebook. Well, this is a great thing designed just for Chromebooks for recording MP3s the same way. It has a little bit more of a sign up thing. You have to add the app. I think that there might be an extension attached to that, but it's a great one. I'm a big fan of Seesaw, especially when we're talking about our young learners. It's good for everyone. And in Seesaw, you have some additional layers. So kids can record their voice. They can draw pictures, they can take videos, but most importantly, they can share that. Seesaw allows them to take the recording, and when they hit submit, it goes straight to the teacher. And even beyond that, they can have an audience of their peers. So the teacher can approve it in a way that the peers can see it, and even go to a further audience of their parents. So not only are they capturing their voice, but they're giving them a place to share it. So Seesaw is a great way to do that.
Nice question just popped up in the chat about OblaCloud. Does it let them download to their Google Drive?
Yes, it does. So it lets them point on the Chromebook especially, it lets them point where they'd like it to go. Instead of going to the little tiny memory space on the Chromebook, it lets them direct it to their drive. So
I have to say, actually, Susan, when I hear people say things like, I can't be creative on a Chromebook, I'm thinking, yeah, that's because you haven't tried. There's all kinds of ways to be creative on a Chromebook, right? It's not the device, it's your willingness to try new things.
Absolutely, yeah. Going into the next one there, we have Flipgrid. Flipgrid is another one you might have heard of. It does voice and videos, and it's another one of those ways where students can post that video to a nice curated space where all the videos are in one place, and the teacher has the opportunity to share them to the other students. So going beyond voice, they can speak what they have to say and see each other's work should the teacher approve it that way. Again, this is another one that requires an account and setup, so a little bit more on the front end to get ready for that, but great way for them to capture voice and share to an audience.
Yeah, and the beauty, by the way, of adding this least little video element is that they get to see each other. They get to see you in the prompt, and seeing each other is actually more and more and more important the farther we get into being kind of shut in at home as we go as well. Scott puts a note in the chat. He says, we just purchased District Seesaw. How much parent help should we expect from parents with younger students? Does it work better on Chromebook through the browser or a phone tablet?
The answer is yes to all the things. So the parents will need to get them going since you haven't had the opportunity to train them in class. The parents will probably need some help, but it's very app-based in the sense it's take a picture. Oh, look, there's a big T where we can type some text. Oh, look, there's a microphone button where they can record their voice. It's very straightforward and user-friendly. So maybe the first couple of tasks you want to be very intentional, and Seesaw has fabulous help docs for that, but the buttons are very, very clear, very user-friendly buttons. Work better on a Chromebook or through the browser. I would say both here as well. One nice thing about the phone and tablet is it makes it so mobile. Kids can go take pictures in their life, right? They can move around. Chromebooks, amazing creative tools, and the challenge of taking a picture with a Chromebook. If you don't have the world-facing camera, there's a lot of nuances there. Can they still hold things up and take their pictures? Absolutely. So much success with Chromebooks and Seesaw, but for different tasks, depending on what you're working on, sometimes the Chromebook would be the right tool for Seesaw. And the phone is a great tool for Seesaw too because of that portability and mobility.
Great question, Scott. Now let's look at the last one on this list, Sound Trap. Now, Sound Trap is taking audio to another level completely, right? This is actually like the online version of GarageBand in some ways. You've got all of these loops, right? These audio loops, these sound effects. You can bring these together to create music. That's actually why the program was originally created, to give people in different places the opportunity to collaborate on music. But a number of us contacted them and said, so this is going to be fantastic for language development. And they're like, wait, what? And so we started talking to them. And they do podcasting stuff now. You can record your voice into this and make it a part of how this works in all kinds of really, really cool ways. Really, really interesting people that run Soundtrap as well. You can take a look at the things they're offering to allow teachers a chance to really explore it without the limitations of the free version normally. So like a lot of companies, they're doing that, and thank them for that. Very, very cool. So to begin wrapping things up, and by the way, folks in the audience, share your questions. We would love to be able to share a few more thoughts as we go. But basically, let's remember that our job, whether in person in classrooms or in online settings, is the same. We care for these kids. We care for their learning. And in order to do that well, we care for ourselves. We make sure that we are doing the things we need to related to sleep and exercise and eating right and just having that energy that allows us to creatively connect with kids who need something different. You may have kids who are in a space of, they've been doing poorly in school forever, and this change, as jarring and wrenching as it is in so many ways, might be exactly what a kid needs to know that we're prepared to shift gears enough to figure out how to help that kid move forward. Sometimes it's one little thing that allows a kid to believe that moving forward is possible. And I hope that you will keep that in mind as we work with the different tools and possibilities that we have over the coming weeks and however long that will be. Let me add some other things to our discussion as well. I hope that you will sign up for my newsletter. I put out a newsletter every month. In it are all kinds of resources and ideas, and even a chance to win a caffeine card. You're like, caffeine card? $5 Starbucks card. If that's upsetting to you, I apologize. But for most people, it's more like, wow, that's great. How do I enter? It's just like watch a 90-second video and let us know. I mean, like it's an easy thing. Despite the fact that I send this to 8,000 people around the world, very few people enter, as in your chances are good. Just saying, get involved. It's good fun. All right. Additionally, we have a couple of different contests going on at the moment. One is Creative Strength. And Creative Strength is a contest designed to get kids to show their strength in being creative about how they explain different things, kind of like one of those activities we described before. In 90 seconds or less, creatively explain something one might encounter in school. Give it a look. If you're interested in that, I would be very happy to discuss it with you. We also have a service contest going on. The service contest says in 2 minutes or less, tell about the work of a person or organization helping others. And we get some gems of videos in that. This month, as a matter of fact, we are doing a celebrating service thing, right? And so, go to our homepage, take a look. It's set there in our April newsletter as well. I'll make sure to get that link in the chat for you also. But every day this month, we're going to have one of these very short videos that kids made telling about cool people that are doing things in different places. And this is the kind of thing that can energize you at a time when you're kind of bummed about some of the situation we're dealing with. Additionally, I have a blog, and the blog is called Inspiring Improvement, and I hope that you will give that a look and share your ideas with me as you go. That is also a good place to find out a little bit more about the writing I do. So you can find my books. I've written books on how to become a better teacher, very, very short chapters that are designed to help you get better as a teacher. The Green Book is one about making your school better. You work with your colleagues to ramp up learning and build confidence, and make the stories of success something that allow you to do great things in the community, from school. These are not like rocket science kinds of things, but sometimes you just need to read something together and go, oh, that's a possibility. And my newest book is one that came out in December called Technology, Teamwork, and Excellence. And that particular book is for leaders, very short chapters with ideas about using technology to make your teams better. If you guys decide to do a book study with these books, let me know, right? I'll be happy to connect with you via video chat and just talk with you about it if that's something that could be helpful to you. What does that cost? It's free. You bought some books. Happy to do it. So just let me know if that's something that's of interest to you. And then finally, be in touch with me if you and your colleagues are interested in some very interesting PD possibilities through the Krause Center for Innovation. I'd love to work with you on that. The before the end of March part is getting changed before the end of April, because we're looking for about 2 teams at this point, 2 schools to have some teachers say we're going to get involved. And if you're really kind of curious, follow the link, right? And be in touch with me, and I'll be happy to tell you more about it. So I'm curious what kind of questions you've got, but just to start, Susan, talk to me about some of the things you're hearing from your people in Fowler. What are some of the most common things that are coming up as you guys work through this online instruction thing?
Yeah, it's very new for all of us, but we are 3 weeks in and we've learned a lot. Right now, a lot of the teachers are, beyond the initial shock of teaching like this, and it's becoming more important that they streamline and finesse the way that they're delivering content to students. So making sure that we're doing it in the most organized way, the way that makes sense for students, that makes sense for parents. We're just really trying to make sure that the way we deliver things for kids is just accessible. And so we're working a lot on streamlining right now.
Cool. And when teachers are connecting with you, like as a tech coach, are there particular tools that they're saying are especially useful for what they're doing? Or are you hearing that with some of the people that you're working with?
Yeah, right now teachers are finding space for innovation, especially because some of the pressure's off, right? Some of the testing pressure from some of the day-to-day pressure, and they're wanting to increase engagement. They want to see their faces. So things like Flipgrid coming, out of the woodworks, like, oh, I've heard of this tool a bunch of times, but now I really have a purpose for it. One of my schools is doing their spirit days, their weekly spirit days. They've always had a dress up day on Friday, and they're having the kids do that on Flipgrid now. So kids can all see each other, whether it's sports team day or whatever it is. And so they're letting kids talk about it instead of just showing up in their sports jersey. They're able to say, oh, today I'm wearing my jersey for this particular, and they're my favorite because, so taking Flipgrid and using it in that way to continue building community, everyone in the school posts to a common Flipgrid, and they're able to share their voice that way and just continue connecting.
When we talked last week about images, this is one of those places where if you're thinking about possibilities with images, which doesn't necessarily mean kids' faces are online, remember that, right? And voice, you can really do some amazing things. And so in addition to Flipgrid for that, there's all kinds of great pieces out there. Book Creator, Adobe Spark, these are free tools that allow you to do some great things. They often have paid versions, but the free tools allow you to really get to know them, which is the thing you want to know. So we're coming up at the end of our time, but let's wind things down. Susan, talk to us a little bit there.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, I am Susan, and you can find me on Twitter if you want to reach out and have any additional questions at Tech Coach Susan, because I'm Susan and I'm a tech coach. It's really an original name I have going on there, right? Tech Coach Susan, find me on the Twitters, and I post a lot to the hashtag K2Can2 because it's something I firmly believe in about empowering our littlest learners through some creation tools and just modern learning experiences.
Excellent. And so I put a link into the chat on K2Can2 as a search in Twitter. So if you want to just click on that to see what kinds of things people are posting, feel free. My name is Rushton Hurley. I've got some different things that are available to you there, and you'll be able to get these slides if you want, because if you go to where we have the recordings all set and the registration for the upcoming webinars, you'll also find with the recordings like the slides that we used and the chat pieces as well, so you can get all the links from the chat. And I'll have that to you later today. If you are registered for one of our webinars, you will get the email that lets you know, here it's up, feel free. And we hope that that's useful for you. We know this is a tough time for everybody, and we hope that the kinds of things that you're learning as a part of the sharing that happens in a setting like this, you'll share with others. We hope that, that you're also getting a lot of stories that inspire you to see possibilities in yourself that you haven't seen before. The kind of professional brainstorming that we do, the creative exploring of these different tools allows us to become the kind of teachers that often we have always hoped we would be. You're that much closer to being a better teacher than you might know. And try something and you'll learn, that's something I can do. And as I mentioned before, there are kids that need it. Join us next week as we talk about reading tools and strategies and resources. That would be awesome. And I hope that as you go forward in the week, you'll find ways to share good things with your own colleagues. With that, we're going to stop the recording, but continue talking to anybody who's attending, because that's one of the big benefits of doing that way. And we hope that when you see something in one of these that you have a question about, you'll reach out to us as well. So take care. We'll see you next week.